So, making a truly iconic and memorable video game villain sure is hard, but once you've pulled it off, fans will relish seeing the baddie return time and time again in an inevitable glut of sequels. However, some developers don't quite seem to appreciate the brilliance that they're sitting on, and so, whether in a sequel or a remake of the original game, they throw out everything that fans actually liked about the antagonist. So let's take a look at them. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are video games that ruined amazing villains. Number 8. Black Mask, Batman Arkham Knight. Black Mask is one of the most beloved foes in Batman's rogues gallery, and Rocksteady's Arkham game seemed like a fitting venue to give him his fair due. Yet, perhaps no other Batman villain can claim to have been so thoroughly wasted and eventually ruined throughout the franchise. Black Mask seemingly has a more substantial role in the prequel Arkham Origins, yet it's soon enough revealed that it's actually the Joker posing as him, effectively providing a segue for yet another Joker-centric Batman game. And finally, we have the Arkham Knight's Red Hood DLC, where the Red Hood fights his way to the Black Mask only for the villain to, well, just beg for his life before Red Hood throws him out of a window to his certain death. That's not only literal assassination, but character assassination. In the comics, Black Mask was a savagely intimidating and calculating mob boss, but throughout the Arkham series, and especially in the Arkham Knight's DLC, he's reduced to a pathetic triviality who dies a coward's death. Black Mask had the potential to be a more grounded villain compared to the over-the-top Joker, and yet Rocksteady just threw it all away. Number 7. Skullface, Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain. Now, Skullface was first introduced in Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain's bite-sized prologue Ground Zeroes, which quickly established him as an imposing antagonist who fans naturally just couldn't wait to take down in the full Phantom Pain release. And yet, despite Skullface's excellent character design and the terrific vocal performance behind it, he ends up being a total damp squib of a villain. For starters, thanks to the game's scaled-back cinematic approach when compared to its predecessors, means that we don't actually get to see a whole lot of Skullface throughout the Phantom Pain, which massively dings his impact compared to prior Metal Gear Solid villains. On top of this, his primary confrontation with Venom Snake isn't actually a boss fight, but an infamous, unintentionally comical exposition dump in the back of a Jeep, before Skullface then gets unceremoniously crushed to death by a Metal Gear as piloted by Psycho Mantis. Skullface had all the makings of an all-timer Metal Gear villain, but as is a rarity for Hideo Kojima, he skimped on both the backstory and the creative boss fight that fans understandably expected before having him die a hugely underwhelming death. Number 6. Tiny Tiger, Crash of the Titans. Right, so I've got a pretty lengthy entry here to read to you about why I think Tiny Tiger was absolutely butchered in Crash of the Titans, but what I'm going to do instead is just put up all of the other images of what Tiny Tiger looked like in every other game, and then, in the center of all of these, put the one from Crash of the Titans. What is going on here? No. Why did they have him speak with a Mike Tyson accent? That was dated when it even came out then. Everything about this just screams, nah, I'm good. Number 5. Shao Kahn, Mortal Kombat 11. Now, Shao Kahn is historically the overarching antagonist of the Mortal Kombat franchise, the all-powerful ruler of Outworld who serves as the end boss in many of the series' games. Shao Kahn is a take-no-prisoners ass-kicker who presents a major brick wall of difficulty, and though skilled players will eventually be able to defeat him, he's mostly managed to maintain a rather fearsome reputation. That was, at least until the most recent entry into the series, Mortal Kombat 11, where he played second fiddle to new antagonist Kronika in the hope of once again becoming the ruler of Outworld. Kahn is then defeated and blinded by Kitana before, in the game's Aftermath expansion, being betrayed by Shang Tsung and drained of his soul alongside Sindel. Given that Kahn is typically presented as an ultra-wise and ultra-powerful enemy, seeing him get ganked so effortlessly by both Kitana and Shang Tsung felt like a major disservice to both the character and to fans. Number 4. Nemesis, Resident Evil 3 Remake. Now, this is the thing, I adore the original Resident Evil 3 game, and Nemesis is one of my all-time favourite villains of all gaming. And if I'm being truly honest, the version that we got in Resident Evil 3's remake wasn't actually terrible for the most part, but I do feel that as soon as he started changing into his, well, let's just call it dog form, things definitely went downhill quite a lot. In the original game, it took a lot longer for him to mutate, and all the while it just built up how much of a powerhouse it was. But here in this, it's kind of like once you get through the first city section, which is utterly brilliant, they just kind of go for the action route, and it's just like, oh, he's lost all tact now. Not that he had much to begin with, admittedly, but here he is just running around in a version that, let's face it, isn't as scary as the bin bag form. The original game truly made Nemesis feel like a Terminator-esque killing machine, whereas in the remake, well, he's far less of a threat, and it doesn't help that the game generally appears to regard Nemesis as kind of a joke. I mean, you got that line where Jill infamously says, "Bitch can't even swim." He should be scarier than that. Number 3, Thanos, Guardians of the Galaxy, the Telltale series. Telltale's Guardians of the Galaxy series made its debut in April 2017, all while movie audiences were still waiting to see the MCU's Thanos take on the Avengers in Avengers Infinity War the next year. But even the most casual Marvel fans already knew that Thanos was one of the most powerful big bads in the history of comic books, and so there was a reasonable expectation that he'd wreak absolute havoc in the Telltale series. And so, when the game's very first episode saw the Guardians face off against him, it was fair to assume that the confrontation would end up with Thanos prevailing or at least escaping with his life in tow. But in a move that shocked just about everyone, the Mad Titan was genuinely killed off in the first half hour of episode 1, when Star-Lord fatally blasts him in the chest. And though players surely expected him to return later in the series, he never does. Thanos' battle with the Guardians confirmed that this version of the character was a far weaker iteration of the all-powerful Hurtbringer from the comics and the movies. Subverting expectations can definitely be a good thing, but in this case, they definitely took a fan-favourite villain and reduced him to a rent-a-goon who proved to be more of an inconvenience to the Guardians than anything else. Number 2, Dr. Eggman, Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. Dr. Eggman, aka Dr. Robotnik, is without question one of the most iconic video game villains, and say it with me kids, of all time! And while this design has undergone a number of variations over the years, they've largely clung to the maxim that Eggman is, well, bulbous and rather egg-shaped. But the 2006 Sonic reboot, a game that really didn't need any help being critically reviled, was pilloried for drastically redesigning Eggman to be, well, considerably thinner. Furthermore, his trademark pink nose was nowhere to be seen, and his realistic sunglasses also meant that we could see something that we'd never seen before, and that was his disconcertingly baby blue eyes. Sega basically attempted to give Eggman's Sonic Adventure design a grounded update, but most fans were simply left horrified at what they'd done to a classic design that didn't remotely need tinkering with. It's still less horrifying than Sonic making out with a human woman in the game, but only barely. Thankfully, the vitriol against Eggman's new design, and indeed the game as a whole, was potent enough that he immediately returned to a more typically paunchy, cartoony look in the next Sonic game. And number 1, SHELOB, Middle-earth: Shadow of War. Anyone who's seen The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King will surely remember Frodo's rather traumatic encounter with the demonic Shelob, which takes the form of a giant spider. Fans of both Peter Jackson's movies and J.R.R. Tolkien's source material were excited to see how the character would be portrayed in Middle-earth: Shadow of War, only to be taken aback that developers Monolith Productions decided to depict her in the most cynical and pandering way possible. In the game, Shelob is able to appear in the form of a sexy elven woman, which couldn't be much less transparent of an attempt to inject some added sex appeal into the game. But why pick the one character supposed to look like a giant damn spider? The decision naturally raised a lot of eyebrows with the fanbase, who despite praising Shadow of War's gameplay, found this character change to be basically sacrilegious. And there we go, my friends, those were 10 video games that ruined amazing villains. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Twitter at RetroJ0, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice, where I do all of my streaming outside of work, and it'd be great to see you over there. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. Hope you're treating yourself well with love and respect, my friends, because you deserve all of the best things in life, like love, happiness, and success, and do not let anything or anyone else tell you otherwise, alright? You're a massive ledge, and I want you to go out there and smash it today. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.